everyone, and welcome to episode 170 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. It's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and like usual, I'm joined this week by Richard. What's up today, Richard?
Hey Seth, what's going on?
Not much. Kinda excited. We have Dominaria Standard in full force. The set is officially out, so we're going to be talking about new standard decks, new standard cards today. We also have kind of a follow-up. Last week we were discussing what Wizards might do with the MTG Arena economy. Now the numbers are out. It's kind of public, so we're going to talk about what actually happened there. And also another topic that's kind of interesting that's been floating around lately is streaming, and sort of like the weird ethics of streaming with ghosting and privacy in these issues, so we wanted to touch on that. And then of course fish mail. But first off, we got to start with the fun stuff. We have a brand new standard format, Dominaria Standard, and what's your first take, Richard? How is Dominaria impacting standard in its first week or two of being legal?
I don't know, Seth. A lot of my knowledge is tainted by Arena with the 3/4 standard, but given the prices of, let's say, Teferi and Lyra Dawnbringer, it looks like we're in for a blue-white, kind of metagame. A lot of strong cards from Dominaria. Like I mentioned, Lyra, Karn popping up in places, Teferi, History of Benalia. Don't forget we have Llanowar Elves making everyone try to play green. So it has impacted Standard. And we're going to talk about the decks in just a second, but this is not one of those sets where it gets released and you forget about it. It's in your face and in a lot of decks right now.
Yeah, I've been very impressed. I know when I did the top 10 standard video with Zach last week, we were talking about it, we were like, Dominaria is awesome, but is it going to be able to break out right away, or is it sometimes these late sets when there's already a really huge standard have to kind of wait towards rotation? But from playing on Magic Online and keeping up on the tournaments over the weekend, there's no doubt that Dominaria is already making its presence felt. I mean, we still have red aggro at the top of the meta. How much of that is just week one, aggro's good on week one, everyone knows aggro's good on week one, so that's the fallback? That could be the main reason, but we're definitely seeing a lot of Dominaria stuff going on too, so I'm pretty excited. The format looks pretty awesome, and I'm pretty happy about it. Also, worth noting, I feel like Scarab God just took a huge blow. Scarab God was arguably the best or the second best card in deck and standard heading into Dominaria, and based on playing on Magic Online in the tournaments this weekend, it's not really where it used to be. Even the control decks aren't necessarily playing black for Scarab God anymore, so a really exciting time.
Alright, let's talk about some decks, Seth. The winner of the Classic is a classic. Green-Black Constrictor. So this is your typical deck where you're playing Winding Constrictor, you're playing a bunch of creatures that put +1/+1 counters on them, notably Walking Ballista, the Explore creatures, and Rishkar, Pima Renegade, topped off by Verdus Gearhulk. And then you have some Dominaria cards like Karn thrown in there for card advantage, and then Adventurous Impulse. I guess kind of just digging for the right creatures, but it's your stock list throwing some Karns in there, and it took down the Standard Classic. What do you think about this deck, Seth?
I mean, it's been a good deck for a long time. I think this is one of the lesser Dominaria influence decks out of what we've seen going around in some of the top decks of the weekend. I'm really surprised that the deck is not playing Llanowar Elves. Seeing Adventurous Impulse when you could be going Llanowar Elves into your 4 Jadelight Rangers or into your Rishkar on turn 2 or Thrashing Bronodon, that part really kind of confuses me. I think Karn was definitely one of the breakout cards of the weekend, just because it's not that it dominated the tournaments or the format, but so many different decks can play it. It's just so easy. This is a green-black mid-range deck. You throw in Karns. You can play blue-white control. You throw in Karns. You can play red aggro and throw in Karns in your sideboard if you want to. It's just so flexible, and it's so hard for it to be bad in slower matchups where drawing an extra card every turn is so good. So what did you think of this one, Richard?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised Karn is in this deck, and I'm surprised Llanowar Elves is not. It seems like one of the decks where you kind of just want to get the game over with, and Karn goes long. So it's interesting, and Karn is $40 right now, so Karn is being jammed in a lot of decks. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I wonder if Charles just had this constrictor deck and he picked up a playset of cards and said, let's go, or if he kind of designed this from scratch and thought, okay, this is actually the best combination of green-black cards put together. But this deck has been around since forever, and it keeps getting new parts to add to it, strangely enough. Every release, there's like stuff to put in. So it's actually pretty cool that this archetype has stuck around and evolved over time.
And remember, this was a couple of sets ago. This was basically an energy deck, so it's really impressive that the deck has managed to kind of evolve from being this energy, play your Long Tusk Cub, double up the counters on it type of deck, and playing Bristling Hydra in like the whole energy package, to now it's basically an explore deck. If you look at the creatures, like those are the counters you're primarily doubling up. Branch Walkers, Jade Light Rangers, you got the Walking Ballistas still. So it's pretty impressive that the deck has been able to change so much with energy, taking a big hit with the bannings, and still be putting up good results.
Alright, let's talk about a new deck that was made possible by Dominaria. Blue-White Historic. We have a mechanic name from the set in the title, so it's got to be good. Basically, a blue-white control deck. You're playing cards like Torrential Gearhulk, Lyra Dawnbringer, Wrath to make things flashy, Merfolk Trickster, a card that many of us, or many people in the comments told us that we missed in our top modern cards, but it's basically a flash Merfolk that when it enters the battlefield, you can tap a creature, and then that creature loses all its abilities. And then you have your control-y things. You have Wizard's Retort. Is cancel with Wizard Upside good enough? The answer is yes. Settle the Wreckage. Seal Away for removal. History of Benalia. An interesting choice to get some knights down for blocking, I'm assuming. So, blue-white, control-y, historic. You've mentioned this deck a lot, Seth. You called it Wrath Flash. What's up with this deck?
I really like this deck. This is one of the decks that I've been playing. We played it on stream last week, and I have still been playing it. I built even a version of it on Magic Arena. So I've been playing it all over the place, and it's super fun, and it's actually surprisingly powerful. I don't know if I like this exact build that much. The build that I've been playing is more mid-rangey and less control-y, like not going with the Torrential Gearhulks and with as many spells, and kind of maximizing the Walking Ballistas and the Rafts and the Lyras and the Teferis. But it's a very powerful deck. Being able to play basically your entire deck at instant speed makes it really hard for your opponent to play around things. Like Settle the Wreckage is such a great card, but if you don't have a lot of instant speed stuff and you pass with 4 mana, your opponents at this point pretty much figure out what's going on and play around it. But when you have Wrath that you can flash in, or Lyra that you can flash in, or History of Benalia, or a counterspell, or a Commit to Memory, it's really hard for people to play around your sweeper. I know the one thing that I feel like is missing from this deck that I had a ton of success with is Urza's Ruinous Blast, the legendary sorcery that exiles all non-legendary permanents. And this build, maybe you can't play it because you have the Sealed Aways and stuff, but I found that card to be incredibly powerful when you build around it.
Yeah, and side note, Teferi, up to $40, sold out from 20 last week, or 15, I guess, at pre-release time, or pre-order time.
I was watching the SCG this weekend a little bit, and they were playing a similar deck to this, and they were talking about Teferi, and they were like, I do not understand why this card is only $13. Like, this card is so broken, it's so busted. I've seen people actually playing it in Modern. I don't know if that'll actually catch on, but Teferi is really, really good. I think we underestimated how powerful the untapping the 2 lands is, because that's just like, you're drawing a card and you're protecting Teferi. Even if you just look at this deck list, you have Blink of an Eye, you have Seal Away, you potentially have Wizard's Retort. If you have a Wizard, you have Merfolk Trickster. You have a ton of things to do with that 2 mana. So you put Teferi up to 5 loyalty, you draw an extra card, and then you have great ways of protecting Teferi as well. So it's very, very good.
My personal favorite is flashing in a Walking Ballista with your 2 Teferi mana.
Yeah.
Second Sun decks, also still a thing. So, blue-white, basically a Second Sun with some Teferis thrown in there. Is it the same deck? Probably. It's actually very different. It's like a pure control deck. All counterspells, Syncopate, Essence, Scatters, Disallows, Glimmer of Genius, Settle the Wreckages, of course, Search for Azcanta. And then we have some Teferis and Sealaways and Second Sun. This reminds me of really old school control where everything is a counter spell or removal, and then you have 3 Second Suns as a finisher.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what Approach has been for a while now. This is very similar to the versions of Approach we've seen a long time. I think CLOA is definitely a good addition. It's definitely more powerful than the other options we had, like Baffling End in a blue-white deck. And I think Syncopate's a sneaky good addition as well for a deck like this, giving you that turn 2 counter for anything, potentially, when you're on the play, which is something you didn't really have. Like, you can play a weird split of, like, Negate and Essence Scatter and hope that you have the right one in your hand, but being able to counter any 2-drop on the play is pretty powerful.
All right, we have Hazoret Red, Mono Red. Basically,
Ew.
what? Basically the same deck, but it has Goblin Chain Whirler. That's the Steel Leaf equivalent. The triple red 3/3 first strike. When it enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage each opponent, each creature, and Planeswalker. It's a really good card, actually. I totally underestimated this when we did spoilers. That 1 damage is a lot, because it kills... If you're in the mono red mirror, it kills a bunch of stuff. It's picking off Llanowar Elves. It's picking off 1/1 Walking Ballista. It actually does a lot of work, surprisingly.
Yeah, interesting with Chain Whirler. It's so good that the red deck is willing to give up some really powerful lands to play it. Like, the past red decks we've seen, you're getting in, like, extra damage with Sunscorched Desert. You're playing Scavenger Grounds to fight against Scarab God decks, because you just have these free slots. But Chain Whirler is so good, the deck is just 23 mountains. Like, you drop all the colorless utility lands specifically just to take advantage of Goblin Chain Whirler, and it posted a really strong finish. So apparently Chain Whirler is actually worth it and very strong.
All right. We'll move on to a more fun mono red deck. We have Goblin Gift. Basically a mono red deck where you play Skirk Prospector. So that's the dude where you sacrifice a goblin to get a red mana. You play a bunch of goblins like Wily Goblin, Goblin Chain Whirler, Rowdy Crew, and your whole spiel is to just throw a bunch of goblins on the battlefield, sack them for mana, cast a God Pharaoh's Gift, use Combat Celebrant to take infinite attack steps, and somehow this is actually a deck and it works, Seth.
I haven't played this deck, but I've played against it a few times, and on paper, it looks really janky, but it's actually, when they have Skirk Prospector on turn 1, it's actually really scary, because it's so easy to turn on your Gate to the Afterlife and get a God Pharaoh's Gift as early as, like, turn 3. If you just go Prospector into Wily Goblin, then on turn 3, you have enough that you can sacrifice your team to do a bunch of looting, make enough mana to play Gate to the Afterlife, hopefully you have enough creatures in your graveyard to just immediately start gifting and getting your stuff back. So it's way more explosive than it looks. It is actually a really powerful deck. It's still it has a good backup plan. I don't know. I've seen it be very scary, but I also have not seen it win that much. So I feel like there's probably some work to be done for it to really be in its final form, but it's a really sweet deck.
All right. How about Black-White Control? Have we seen Black-White Control before?
I think this is a new one, mostly.
I don't see any Dominaria cards in here, though. So basically, just a whole bunch of, like, Settle the Wreckage, Fumigate, Approach of the Second Suns, Vraska's Contempt, the Immortal Sun is in here. We have, I guess, a Seal Away is Dominaria, Authority to Consoles, Cast Out, Ixalan's Bind. Basically, every removal spell you can name in these 2 colors, this deck is playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a black-white approach deck that's just, instead of having the card draw that you get from being blue-white, you just have endless removal from being black, along with having Mastermind's Acquisition, which can do some really cool things. Being able to grab, like, a Lost Legacy from your sideboard against, like, in the approach mirror in Game 1, that can just be, like, a game-winning play. So there's some cool things you can do with Mastermind's Acquisition as a wish type effect as well.
All right, our first Llanowar Elves deck. Green-white aggro. Basically, the shell of Llanowar Elves, Resilient Kendra, Steel Leaf Champion, Jade Light Ranger, Galta Primal Hunger. You power out scary green things, and then there's a splash for Shalai.
Yeah, I wonder if that's worth it. Like I've seen the mono green Stompy list a lot. I haven't seen them splashing for Shalai. Maybe Shalai is just what you need to win the game. But I wonder if like making your mana less consistent is worth the one white card, or if mono green Stompy is just better.
Yeah, but it's a scary looking deck. Getting a turn 2 Steel Leaf Champion, and if you don't have removal in hand, good luck.
Yeah, this deck, I've definitely played against the non-splash version, and it's a really scary Galta deck. Galta looks just like this big dumb creature, like, hey, whatever, it's a 12 mana 12/12, it's just big. But because of trample, it's really scary, and this deck can easily go like Llanowar Elves into on turn 2 into the Steel Leaf Champion, and then on turn 3 potentially do something like Heart of Kirin, crew Heart of Kirin with Steel Leaf. You have 10 power, play a Galta for 2 mana, and then like How do you beat that? You gotta have a Vraska's Contempt or a Cast Out like right away, or you're just dead the next turn.
Yeah, interestingly enough, not a lot of what is the Doomblade called? Cast Down, Ride Down.
Cast Down.
What was it?
Yeah, Cast
not
Down.
A lot of those Doomblades floating around. Maybe there's too many legendary creatures, and we've seen Seal Away as the most common of the new removal. It's just basically a 2 mana. I guess Oblivion Ring or something where you're on the defense because the creature has to be tapped. So that's actually quite interesting that Seal Away is the removal option of choice in most of these decks.
Yeah, we see a lot of 4 of Seal Aways, and I don't think we've seen a Cast Down period yet.
Alright. We have red black aggro. It has stuff in it. Skirk Prospector apparently just works as a way to naturally ramp yourself. With Wily Goblins, Captain Lannery Storms, the payoff, Rekindling Phoenix Glorybringer like every other red deck, Chandra. But the interesting thing in this deck is it plays Settle the Score. So,
it's a combo.
So you can exile a creature and then pump up Chandra towards the ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, the way the math lines up, if you can play a Chandra 1 turn and have it not take any damage, the next turn you can just settle the score or something and immediately ultimate, which Chandra's ultimate is pretty much unbeatable. It's very, very hard to lose when everything you cast comes with a 5 damage kicker attached to it. So I think it's pretty interesting. Also, Fight with Fire is kind of an interesting removal spell that hasn't really been seen play in many decks. 5 damage to a creature for 3 mana, but I guess it's fairly efficient, and if you ever get to 1,000,000 mana, it's 10 damage anywhere you want.
So only 10 damage for 1,000,000 mana, Seth? Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know about... I wonder. This is another one where I think we'll learn as things go along if the splash is worth it. You're not only are you splashing in this deck, like with Shalai at least, it's just 1 white mana. With this, you're splashing a bunch of double black removal spells, which feels awkward, but you do have the treasures from Wily Goblin and from Captain Lannery Storm to kind of help with that, but I'm still not 100% convinced this is better than just being mono red at this point.
I mean, you have Duress in the sideboard. A lot of the sideboard cards are black, so...
That's true. And Squee. First Squee appearance in the sideboard. When you really just always need a 2/1.
Any other decks you want to point out, Seth?
I think that pretty much covers the classic. Let me take a peek real quick at the team open. I'm not sure. I think it was mostly the same stuff.
It looked mostly the same. I don't see anything too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Bant approach deck, which I guess is a little bit different. This deck has kind of been floating around for a while, not really influenced too much by Dominaria, except for a bunch of Seal Aways, which seems to be the norm for a lot of decks these days. Otherwise...
Ooh, I found a good one. At 25th in the Team Classic, we have Mono Black Control. Running 4 Dreadshades, 4 Gifted Etherborn, 4 Gaunties, 4 Josu Vesses, and Removal Suite. We have Cast Down, made an appearance. Fatal Push, Torment of Hailfire, Vraska's Contempt, lands for Cabal Strongholds.
That's interesting. I think that's a really cool idea. I don't know how effective that strategy is, but it's fun, and it plays a lot of cards that I think people are excited about trying out. I remember when I first started, I think this has kind of went away, but when I first started doing content a few years ago, every set people were looking for mono black control to be a thing. I don't know if you remember this. Every time something was printed, they were like, "Oh my god, we're gonna have mono black control again," and it would never work out. But maybe this is the time for it to actually happen.
This is more mono black mid range. This isn't mono black control. It's really greedy. 4 Cabal Strongholds, 4 Cabal Strongholds, 2 Field of Ruins, and you're gonna somehow cast Shade Dread or Dread Shade on turn 3.
Yeah, that seems like more of a 5-drop in that
It
deck.
feels like Cabal Stronghold should be a Nykthos. If it's a Nykthos, this would be out of this world, but it's a Cabal Stronghold instead.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see. It's cool that people are trying it. It's really hard to tell with the team opens because theoretically the standard player could have went, I don't know, like 4-11 or something, and his teammates just won every game and they still put up a good performance. So it's really hard to judge the performance of individual decks from a team event.
Quickly check if his teammates are playing legitimate decks or not. No. Alright, so
Mono black control in all formats.
So looking at the most played cards, top spell in the classic, Seal Away. Beating out Settle the Wreckage, negate, cast out, fumigate. Looks like a lot of control-y cards for spells. Top creatures played, Goblin Chainroller is up there, behind Walking Ballista, which is a shoo-in in every deck. Skirk Prospector in a lot of decks as well. Apparently sacrificing goblins for mana is a thing. And Lyra Dawnbringer up there. Beating out Hazoret, Torrential Gearhulk, Glorybringer. So a lot of stuff from Dominaria being played, and surprising stuff. Skirk Prospector in kind of both fair decks and unfair decks. Strange. Seal Away, choice removal, not cast down. Or is it cast down?
Cast out, I think.
Cast out is the Flash thing, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. You're all right. It's cast out.
Yeah.
Cast out.
Why do we have cast out and cast out in the same format?
Wizards and their naming.
Where's cast up?
Yeah.
That's a ref spell.
Or like reanimate something.
Oh yeah. All right, we'll add that just to give commentators something to think about.
I think those cards make a lot of sense, though. I'm looking at the overall most played cards because we've had the format on Magic Online for a little while now, and it's pretty similar. Like the overall list, History of Benalia is a little bit higher overall than it was at the tournaments this weekend. Lyra is super high, number 2 most played creature behind Walking Ballista, with Llanowar Elves coming in at number 3. So that's worth noting, and I feel like a couple of cards that don't show up on the list but were really impactful, Teferi and Karn should definitely be remembered. I don't think they'll show up as much as the most played because they kind of show up as 1-ofs or 2-ofs, and the decks might have not finished as highly, but watching the tournament over the weekend, there was definitely a lot of Teferis and Karns on coverage.
Real quick, did Mox Amber break Modern?
Mox Amber has shown up in a couple of 5-0 Magic Online lists, but I don't think it showed up at the tournament this weekend that I noticed. But there was a 5-0 finish by the Isumaru Kaifian play all the white 1-drops.
Was that you, Seth? Did you do this?
No, it was not me. I was the one that thought that deck probably had no chance of working. But
playing against the odds and accidentally 5-0'd and put your deck on the side.
I think it was Todd Stevens actually that finished, or one of those streamery people.
Oh, quickly while we're on Dominaria, Firesong and Sunspeaker has the dust settled on our buy a box promo, sitting at $15 ish, only attainable through buy a box. What is our conclusion here? Is this price going down or up?
It's hard to say yet. It's only a buy a box promo, which means copies probably only started coming out in the last 2 weeks, but I know it feels like people are not selling them. I checked yesterday, like Star City, Card Kingdom, and they were all out of stock. So it feels like the people that got them as bias box promos are not just buy listing them out on the market. There wasn't even that many copies on eBay. It was just a handful of copies on eBay. So it feels like the people that bought them are keeping them because they know that they're scarce. And if those copies don't start filtering out to the vendors and on eBay, then we could see the prices going up, because it seems like it's pretty low supply. I think right now it is tied, or was tied with History of Benalia as like the fourth most expensive card from Dominaria, which pretty crazy considering it doesn't really see play anywhere.
Yeah. So Wizards, please don't do this anymore. Please include your cards in your packs. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully they do something. Like, this seems like the kind of card that they'll put in a commander deck or something, but hopefully they learn a lesson and don't do this again in the future. So let's move on from Dominaria and talk about our second topic for the week, and that is Magic Arena. So we got the economy numbers, and I was expecting a freak out. It wasn't as much of a freak out. It was more mixed reviews. Some people are still unhappy, but overall I think a decent amount of people thought that the changes were good. The numbers, while maybe not generous, were not nearly as ungenerous as some people expected. So, Richard, what are you thinking of the arena economy, and where are we at with that?
All right. So the summary was, for $100, you get 20,000 gems. And for 18,000 gems, you get, what was it, 90 packs?
9, yeah. In theory, like, if you spent those gems all on packs, you'd get 100 packs.
Okay. So that was it. And then we opened some stuff, and it looks like when you open all these packs, on average, you're going to get somewhere around 8 wildcard mythics. What was the number on rares? Like 20-ish?
Yeah, I think, yeah, roughly
20-ish, and then plus you get a whole bunch of stuff that you open incidentally, which may or may not go towards your deck. But the conclusion was, for $100, you can most likely build at least one tier 1 standard deck. You have enough wild cards just straight up that you can build whatever deck you want, and if you got lucky and opened stuff that was needed for your deck. I know we both did it, and we just opened like 8 off-color mythics and had to rely on our wild cards to get anywhere. But just the wild cards alone should get you at least a deck, putting your first deck on Magic Arena to be around $100. And I thought, that's very good. I know when I looked at your Wrath Flash deck, paper price $300, online price, Magic Online price $300, so Magic Arena price $100 is pretty good. Even though, you know, the decks are not exactly the same because we don't have the exact same card pool, $100 is really cheap to get started. The problem still remains that it's hard to switch decks. You know, if you wanted to play Wrath Flash this week and then Mono Red Aggro the next week, it's kind of tough. But I thought the price of packs was actually quite reasonable and a lot cheaper than I thought what Wizards would charge.
Yeah, I think the price of packs, I think if you buy them in small amounts, it's like $1.34, and then if you buy the biggest amount of gems, it goes all the way down to $1. And we were predicting more like $2, maybe going down towards $1.50 or something as you bought more. So I think the pack price came in lower than I thought it would. There's been generally good response, I think, to the fact that you can earn cards and gold and stuff from being able to play some like league type events. It's still a little weird because it's best of one and it's not fully developed like Paper Magic yet, but there's still ways you can earn more cards and more gold. So I think overall the response was pretty good. I feel like as far as prices, I feel like it's definitely better for new players who, when they see $300 or $500 to buy a deck in paper on Magic Online, paying $100 is a pretty good deal. On the other hand, I think if you're someone who's maybe a spike and trying to switch and play a lot of decks, for those type of players, if you have a $500 investment in paper or in Magic Online, your money probably goes farther there because you can easily trade and switch decks, which you can't really do. I feel like I built the Wrath Flash deck, which I really like, and it's a mythic heavy deck, it's a rare heavy deck, and I want my deck to be complete. So I got everything I did. It cost me all my wild cards. So I feel like I'd probably have to spend another $100 to get the wild cards to build a second deck, unless the deck was related and I was like another blue-white deck where I was using all the rare lands, reusing Lyra Dawnbringer, and just changing up a little bit. So I think that's where it falls. I feel like it's definitely a good option though for players that just don't have $500 to get started. Like $100 to get started is a lot cheaper than getting started any other way of playing Magic. So overall, I think it's pretty good. I wish they had. There's a couple of little things I don't even know if they're worth complaining about, but things with like how you pay, the gems and the gold is weird, where they kind of have these two currencies to kind of squeeze every last drop of money out of people because you win gold from events, but you can't like combine the gold and gems. So if you were just tiny bit of gold short, you got to buy more gems to play another event, which isn't unique to Wizards. A lot of these freemium games do that, but it's still kind of a little like distasteful, I guess. It just seems like obvious and like, do you really gotta squeeze for every single last drop? But overall, I feel like it was much more positive than I expected it to be last week when we were making predictions.
Yeah, I flip-flopped back over. every week is different. First, I was really hyped about Magic Arena. Then I was really disappointed. I'm back on the hype. For my $100, I built 3 quote-unquote fully powered decks, meaning that I don't have budget substitutes for them. So I have mono-red aggro, I have black-white vampires, I have black-white knights, which I built, and then I have a bunch of decks that have some budget substitutes, like mono-green Stompy, an actual cool deck, mono-blue Flyers, which is weird. And so those decks, I have a bunch of substitutes, but I have a couple more wild cards. The problem with wild cards is I just don't want to spend them. Like, you want to try a deck, but then it's like all in, right? Like, do you want to use your 2 mythic wild cards to get these cards that are specific to one deck? You know, if it's like a Karn or it's a Fairy or something, you're like, okay, I can use that in multiple decks. But if it's like some weird jank thing like Combat Celebrant, like there's only one deck it goes in, and if you don't like that deck or that deck sucks, you're gonna waste those wild cards. So I have kind of that issue with wild cards, but in general, I've been grinding the leagues. The leagues are like the I guess the arena matches in Hearthstone, where you play up to 7 wins or up to 3 losses, and you get a bunch of rewards. At maximum, you earn 500 gold and 3 at least rares if you win out. It costs you 500 to enter, but you make back 1,000 if you win out. So it's actually quite feasible just to grind away matches. And a league is very quick. Each game takes like 5 minutes or something. So maybe if we play enough, by the next set in Dominaria block, you don't actually need to buy any new packs. Maybe you have enough wild cards and just random gold saved up that you can just buy packs and not have to spend real money. So that'll be interesting as we have more time. Like, what is it feasible to grind? Can you go infinite without actually, forking over $100 or $200 every time a new expansion comes out?
It's worth pointing out, as far as the constructed leagues, I think the break-even point is 6 wins. Like, so if you, so
it's
you
way
have
lower
to,
than that. It's 4, right?
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was thinking of the limited events. You have to get 6 wins. That sounds right.
I believe the break even is, I think, 4, but you theoretically break even sooner because so you get 3 cards and they basically start as 3 at least uncommons, and as you win more, the floor gets guaranteed all the way up to at 7 wins it's 3 rares. So if you imagine that rare as a pack, because basically when you open a pack it's a rare, right? You actually, like, even if you go like 1-3 or something, like it's almost the same as if you opened a pack. The only difference is I think you can't get wild cards at this point,
which are kind of the I mean, by far the most valuable
Right.
things you
So
can get,
so it's
right?
not exactly like a rare is a pack because you can't get a wild card. But if you open 3 rares as your individual card rewards, that's almost the same as opening 3 packs. Because I know I've actually had a league where I won 1,000 gold and 2 mythics, 1 rare.
So my question is, they're obviously good if you're pretty good at Magic, but how legitimate of a grind is it if you're okay or maybe bad or new at Magic? Like, is that still a way that's feasible for you to like grind out a collection, or is that a way if you're an experienced, pretty strong Magic player and you can consistently hit a lot of wins? It's great for you, but kind of sucks for the new players.
I don't. You probably won't. I mean, obviously, the better you are and the faster you play, the more gold per minute you would gain. But my guess is when we actually sit down and do the math, that playing leagues is better than cracking packs or something. Like going,
even if you're not,
if you're not very good and you go
average.
like, if you go, I think like 2-3, you lose like 100 gold or something, but you get like 1 rare and 2 uncommons, right? And 100 gold is like 1/10 of a pack, right? So like instead of spending money on packs, I think it's worth it to kind of do leagues and quote unquote scrub out, possibly. Right? The thing that throws a wrench into this is, what is the percentage of upgrade from going from uncommon to rare? And then, what do you lose up by not getting wild cards? So
yeah, that makes sense.
So that's the thing. And it's also interesting, the individual reward cards come from every set as well. So you don't just keep getting Dominaria cards even though your Dominaria collection is full.
Oh, that's worth noting. So it's also worth mentioning that it feels like part of what Wizards did with this update was try to shift play to some extent from playing just the regular ranked matches to these tournament events, quick constructed or whatever it is, because they took away you get a card from just winning games when you play random games. So they kind of took those away and put those cards, those individual reward cards, for only the tournaments. So this is like, I think it's kind of a good news, bad news situation. I think that helps alleviate the concern that some people had where it was like, after I get my 4 wins, there's not really a good motivation for me to keep playing in the same day. So having the quick constructed leagues gives you something you can grind endlessly and keep getting rewards, keep getting gold. On the other hand, it does take away from the very free to play, the lowest percentage of players who like don't want to pay anything towards it because you actually have to spend your gold to get into these tournaments, and they're not getting the free cards whenever they just play a random ranked match.
Yeah, this could be the case where, because I come in with a tier 1 Hazoret deck, right, because I play Magic, it's very simple for me to always play quick constructed, I think it's called, the leagues, because I'm basically making gold every time I play. I'm making cards. Whereas if you have a weaker deck, you're just starting Magic, you're playing maybe a deck without mythics and stuff, maybe leagues are too hard. Because I don't even know how the matchmaking works, because I play a league and I get matched all over the place. If I'm in gold, sometimes I play someone in bronze. Sometimes I play someone in silver. Sometimes I play, when I was in silver, I was playing against gold people. So I don't really know how the matchmaking works, if it's like Moto where kind of all the 6-0s match up against each other, or if it's actually based on your MMR, because it seems all over the place.
Yeah, it's based on record primarily, they said. So the number one like matchmaking when you're playing a quick constructed league is to play someone with the same record, and then if there's multiple people at the same time that have the same record, then the secondary characteristic or whatever is what your actual rating is or rank is. But number one, you get paired with someone with the same record regardless of rating.
Yeah, so then that greatly favors the higher ranking players. Because at 1-0, if I'm a Masters tier player and you're a Bronze player, we're equivalent because we're both 1-0, but chances are my deck is a lot better because I'm in Masters. Unless I'm, quote unquote, off deck and playing something else, right?
So one last question before we move quickly to a couple other topics. Playing these quick constructed, I haven't really done the quick constructed. I've just played the rank matches. What is the general power level? Like, are you seeing primarily mostly complete tier decks? Are you seeing people with like the starter decks that you get playing the quick constructed? Like, how is that?
when I look at the decks, they're all fully powered decks. The question is, are you meta or are you not? So the meta game is basically blue black control and mono red. And I think mono red's actually the strongest deck and the best deck because you can play more matches and get more gold. But there are people that are playing, say, mono green stompy, black white knights, stuff like that. But their deck looks complete. And they're choosing to play this deck because they're testing it or they want to have fun or whatever, and not because, you know, they're missing all their mythics or anything. So
you're not seeing like the 1 mythic, 3 rare intro deck cats or whatever too much in the constructed.
Right, and if you do, they'll be round 1. But by the time you get into like, you know, 3-0, 4-0 or whatever, like you're pretty much in tier territory. So when I'm playing leagues, it feels like I'm playing like an actual league in Moto, as opposed to, say, a casual, friendly tournament practice game where you go in and decks are all over the place. When you're playing constructed in Arena, it feels like everyone has put their deck together and they are trying their best to win, and they're trying to have a legitimate deck and they're trying to do something.
So last arena question. You just got into the beta today. You got the opening card pool. You don't have money to buy cards. What's your recommendation, Richard? Do you play Quick Constructed and spend your whatever gold you can grind from that? Or should you probably, if you're playing like the starter deck, should you be playing the ranked queues and trying to build up a better deck before you spend your gold on Quick Constructed?
I think you should build a mono red deck. We have an article on getting started on Magic Arena with mono red. And I think depending on your skill, if you are let's say a regular GP player, or, you know, you're kind of a spiky player, I think you would just go into straight Quick Constructed. You'll probably open 1 or 2 mythic wild cards, get some Hazards in your deck, and you're good to go. You can at least 4-3 these events and you'll be earning cards. And the most important thing to be doing is your daily quests, which give a ton of gold, and earning your 15 your 3 packs with 15 wins each week. And then you can do that while in the leagues. But if you're not so confident in your gameplay, you can do it in the normal quick matches. But I think you can pretty much just get into the leagues quite quickly if you know what you're doing, if you're good at Magic. Asterisks.
All right, so let's move on from Arena. So we wanted to briefly mention there's kind of been some conversations going on in the community lately as far as streaming. So it's basically focused on 2 things. First off, the ethics of ghosting, which if you're not familiar with the streaming world, that's when you tune into the stream of the person you're playing against in a tournament to try to see their hand and gain an advantage. Also, the other side of the coin is the ethics of streaming opponents and their usernames without them actually consenting to be on your stream or your video. So what are your thoughts on this great streaming debate that's been going on, Richard?
Alright, I think ghosting is fine. I mean, it's like not fine. Like, let's say if I'm playing Seth and I know he's streaming, I'm not gonna go tune in to look at his hand. I don't think that's good, or like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Like, why would you, you know, let's say you're playing FNM and your opponent goes to the bathroom and says, hold on, and puts their hand down. Are you really gonna take their hand and take a look at it? Like, is that what you would actually do? I wouldn't. So I wouldn't ghost. But as a streamer, you should be aware that people will ghost you and you have to deal with it, right? Like, the whole point of streaming is saying, hey world, look at what I'm doing. I'm playing, come watch me. And then you can't be like, hey, why are you watching me? Go away, right? Like, you're just gonna get ghosted. And you need to have the attitude that, yeah, sometimes you get ghosted and you'll get wrecked, or, you know, you just gotta be the better player and play around the ghost. I know a lot of popular streamers use that to their advantage. They'll, like, bait people with stuff. It's harder in Magic because you can't really do stuff like that, but they know that, oh, you know I'm here on the map. I know you're coming for me. I'll just outplay you because I know that you know where I am and I know that, so I'll play accordingly. So next level them. But I think as a streamer, you really can't do anything. And if you don't want to get ghosted, don't stream. Like, it's a very easy thing to do, right? A lot of pros don't stream their PTQs or high level events, but they'll stream their normal leagues because those are low stakes matches.
I disagree. I mean,
what?
Yeah,
are you turning off the
agree.
stream set?
I agree in the sense that if you're a streamer, you can't do anything about ghosting. Like, I definitely agree with that. I disagree with that it's just okay and acceptable, because I think it works for you if, like, I wouldn't go someone, you wouldn't go someone, but the other side of that argument is I'm a spike, my goal is to win, and whatever gives me the greatest chance of winning, I'm going to do. So that's why you have people that do go. So I think that we should have strong communal norms against ghosting, because to me it feels like cheating, and maybe that's just coming from someone who streams, but personally it doesn't bother me on my stream. I'm playing leagues, I'm doing it to have fun, but if I was playing a more high stakes match, then I could see where it would be pretty obnoxious. And I think the reason this came up was one of the challenges that they do on the weekend, which are kind of like medium stakes. They're higher stakes than playing leagues, but they're not quite to the level of a PTQ or something where someone won by ghosting their opponent. So I would like Wizards to, even if it's not really enforceable, put something in the terms of service saying that that's not acceptable, because I think you want the pros streaming. Like, the greater good for the game is when someone's playing a pre-TQ, when LSV is playing a PTQ, or Finkel's playing some big tournament, that those people feel like they can put it on stream, because I think that that helps grow the game more than having these people feel like, oh, I have to do it on a 30-minute delay because someone's going to ghost me, or I'm not going to stream it all together. So I think the greater good is encouraging people not to ghost, because I think you want to incentivize as many people as possible to be streaming the highest EV matches as possible.
But what's the point if you can't enforce it?
Just to set the record straight.
But I'm
that
almost
it's
positive
behavior.
anyone that thinks about it for 2 seconds will realize how much of an unfair advantage and quote-unquote cheating it is, that they're doing this, right? It's just they're valuing their EV or whatever on top of that, right? Or they know they can't be caught. And that's why it's, people who want to steal or do bad things or commit crimes, they're going to do it anyway, right? So it's kind of hard to...
But we still have laws against those things. It's not like, oh, people are going to steal anyway, so
yeah, but
we don't have a law that says it's illegal.
Well, let's talk about, say, copyright infringement that's hard to enforce, right? Like, people just do it anyway. Like, you, as a media company or something, you got to deal with it, right? You can't assume your movie's not going to be bootlegged and thrown on the internet. It will be, so you got to be prepared for it. That's what I think streamers got to do. Like, there's no way this can be enforced, so you need to be prepared for it, or you need to know that, hey, if I'm playing this winning in for top 8 or whatever, I should turn off my stream because I care about the results. I don't know. I think it just goes with the job. It's like, if you're a comedian, you'll get heckled. Should you be heckling comedians? Probably not, right? But as a comedian, you just gotta deal with it, right? Like, I don't know how you would stop this.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I do expect that some people will ghost, and I don't especially care if people ghost my stream. Like, I guess I would prefer if they didn't, if someone asked me.
That's ad revenue, Seth. Please, everyone ghost the stream, though. What do you think about the argument that it's offset by the fact that they have a stream helping them? That that streamers themselves are in fact cheating because it's not them playing, it's a collective group of people playing, giving them the advantage that offsets the disadvantage of being ghosted.
I think that is an argument that only comes from people who have never streamed before. Because I think if you asked any streamer, you don't stream because you want the chat to improve your chances of winning. When you go to stream, you know that you're going to win less often than if you were focused only on playing Magic, not focused on entertaining, not focused on looking at deck lists or answering questions in the chat. That's not why you stream. You stream to entertain and to interact, and like that's the reason you do it. So maybe there's like 1% of the time where the chat actually helps you, but that's outweighed by the fact that you're playing 10% worse all the time because your attention is split to trying to entertain and you're not focused on just trying to win a game of Magic.
Yeah, it's just imagine trying to play a game of Magic with like, just say even only 20 people screaming in your ear, but you can't just ignore them. You gotta actually talk back to them, and that's streaming. And I can see how this works if you're a small streamer and you have like one person in chat and they're LSV and they're feeding you answers, and okay, that's probably advantageous. But if you have any size audience and you're interactive in any way, it's way, way worse. And it's pretty much the same across all games. Everyone plays better off stream than they do on stream because they're multitasking and doing like a billion things as they're streaming, so they can't play, as best as they actually could.
Yeah, I'm sure there's situations where it could be an advantage. Like if you have a pro tour team that's together for testing, and one person's playing Magic Online, and everyone in the room is around them trying to come up with the best line. Like, I'm sure there's times when that can happen, but I think in general, most streams, it's definitely a net negative as far as your win percentage.
So chat lethal, huh?
Yes, there's even a term for it. All right. We have gotten to the fish mail section of our podcast. So, Richard, take it away. What do we got for fish mail this
All right.
week?
If you have any questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. If you could have one normal character become a planeswalker, who would it be? Do you know any characters? I forgot.
No, I'm trying to look up. Characters.
Mishra.
Oh, Mishra would be a cool.
Forget
planeswalker.
Mishra. I want a real Urza planeswalker, even though he is a planeswalker. Ooh. Like, give me a real card. But Mishra would be a cool planeswalker.
Or Yawgmoth. People are apparently hyped for Yawgmoth, like an evil Bolessi Yawgmoth. That would be cool.
They should just make Yawgmoth come back and give him ridiculous abilities and make him cost 20. And then like have some clause that you can't cheat him into play. You know how they have all those clauses to keep stuff from coming like reanimated and not played from hand and stuff like that? Just give him one of those clauses. Make him be like Emrakul price, but like lots of black mana or something, so you can't Tron him out. And then just have him do crazy stuff like target player dies. Target player loses the game.
That would be cool. I would be down with that.
That would be sweet. Dementor 92. Would you guys ever consider playing Commander deck built around a vertical? Bloodfire Dwarf, Bloodfire Kavu, Bloodfire Colossus. Or horizontal cycles? Wait, what's a vertical? Is it the Bloodfire prefix?
No, I think it's like one's like less mana and smaller, but they have similar abilities. Like, they all sack to deal a certain amount of damage to each thing. One's like 4 mana, 6 mana, 1 mana, 4 mana, 6 mana, something like that.
Yeah, so cycles we always play. Verticals seems like if you have a deck with that theme, you would put them all in, right? So it seems like that should be viable.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to do like, oh, everyone pick one of the Bloodfires and build a deck around it, because I don't even think we have legendary cycles like that, but I could see building like a Bloodfire theme deck or a damage to everything theme deck and having all of them in it.
Alright, from Streakus. History of Benalia being mythic while Fall of Thran is rare is why I'm not happy with Standard. I'm tired of pricey 4 of staples at Mythic. Grimflayer, Soulfire Grandmasters. Can we stop WotC from these money grabs?
I feel like Wizards has done slightly better recently. I know in the past I had written some articles about making Mythics feel mythic and how they gotten away from their original intent and design, and I feel like the more recent sets have actually done a pretty good job of having the staples at rare. I think the one you just mentioned, History of Benalia, is an exception, and I know I was surprised just mostly because mass land destruction is typically mythic these days, even in like master sets. Armageddon's a mythic, so that was a little bit surprising to me, but I feel like overall they've done a pretty good job keeping the mythics mythic and not standard staples, and making the rares where the standard staples are.
Mm-hmm. And plus, they've done good stuff. Like, we have the legendary uncommons for budget-conscious commander players. You know, some of our staples are uncommons, like Fatal Push. So it's not all bad. But yeah, I mean, Magic is expensive, and we continually have the Mythic Planeswalkers, which I doubt they're going to change anytime soon, propping up the prices of formats. Sebastian Tans. Do you guys think Wizards will experiment more with pay life to draw card effects similar to Necro and Gristlebrand? Haha.
I think it's been a thing for a long time in Magic, maybe back to the very beginning with like greed and stuff. So I feel like we will keep seeing those effects, but I think Wizards knows that Grizzlebrands and Necromancers and Necropotents, how did Chaz used to say it? is a little bit too powerful. So I think we'll see the effects, but they'll probably be watered down and not pushed as much as Grizzlebrand. Or,
yeah, we always have pay life to draw cards. What you're asking for is insanely broken pay life to draw cards. And Wizards and players know now that your life total is a resource. But we do have Scumble the Temptation, whatever the new one is. There's a new one.
I mean, we have even
Arguel's
like
Bloodfast. Yeah, it's just there quote-unquote balanced and not insanely broken like Necro. Gristlebrand was a surprise. I'm surprised they made Gristlebrand. They knew how big and bad he was, but they made him anyway. So maybe we'll get another Gristlebrand sometime soon. SL Kirstens. As someone who plays Amonkhet, the concept of a core set is new to me. The next set is a core set, right? What is different? How is it different? Can we draft or play sealed with it? Are all cards standard legal? What is a core set, Seth?
Alright, so core set's pretty simple. Everything that is true about a normal set is true about a core set as well. So everything's standard legal, you draft it, you play sealed, there's a pre-release, all that stuff is the same. The big difference with core sets are they're often more new player focused, which might mean less complex mechanics in the set. I don't even know if you'll feel a difference too much, especially if you only start playing an Amonkhet. But if you've been playing for a long time, they probably feel slightly less complicated a lot of times than an expert level expansion or normal standard set. The other big difference is reprints. Like, a normal standard set has very few reprints, usually at lower rarity. Core sets are actually 50%, they're saying, roughly reprints from old cards, which they'll all be legal in standard, but you'll see a lot of cards that were from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, that'll be making a reappearance and being standard legal for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. Steve Monty 215. What price would you set for an arena subscription service that grants you every standard legal card as long as you're subscribed?
Well, I mean, as a player, like $10 a month would be great, but I think a realistic price might be, I'm going to say $50 a month. I think right now, to really play standard fully, I'm expecting you got to spend about $200 per set release, which would be every like 3 to 4 months. You'd have to pay $200. Maybe I'm wrong there, but that's my thinking at the moment. So that would be maybe 50-ish bucks a month.
Yeah, I think $50 is about right. They'll never do it, by the way. They want you to open packs. And they want you to spend a lot of money, and they want you to not calculate probabilities correctly. Like, this is part of the plan.
Yeah. Because, I mean, what they want the people that spend $500 a set to be able to do that, and those are the people that would pay a subscription. Like, all the free-to-play players, they're not going to spend $50 a month anyway, but they want the whales to spend even more than that $200 a set release, and that would make that not happen.
All right, the Fallen 3274 played 3 brawl matches in my league. All 3 opponents were brawl. Going to not play if it's mono blue every match.
Yeah, I think that competitive brawl is close to unplayable at the moment. It is literally all blue and primarily all brawl decks.
It's basically tiny leaders. This is what happens when you force Commander onto a small card pool and make it 1v1. Brawl should have been marketed as multiplayer, and they never should have made 1v1 Brawl.
Yeah. And I think there's a risk that it kills the format, period, because of exactly like this fishmail question. Yep. Like, people play a league, they find out it's horrible, miserable, all brawl, counter every spell you do, and then instead of being like, oh, maybe I'll try multiplayer, they're just like, all right, well, I'm done with this format, I'm never playing it again.
Yeah. Vraymant MX, is Dominaria going to be the Kaladesh block of 2019? Will it bend the format and cause prices to skyrocket due to a focus on legends?
I don't think so. I think it's a very strong set, and I think after rotation, it will probably be the strongest set in Standard, but there's no one, like, linear mechanic that you have to play these 10 cards like we saw with Energy or with Vehicles. It's kind of like the power is spread out all over all different things, so I think we'll have chase cards, a very powerful set, but I don't think it'll have that dominant mechanic or theme like we saw with Kaladesh.
Alright, 11 Vicious. Have you guys seen the Aereo, Aethersworn Candace, Mox Opal, Mox Amber combo? Supposedly you can cast both creatures and flip Aereo on turn 1. What is this combo?
I have not seen this. What were the cards again?
Aereo?
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to say it. Is that the Kamigawa upside down thing?
Yes, it flips around so it's a 2-mana 1/1 flying. Whenever you cast a force spell for the turn, it flips into an enchantment that makes it so you counter the first spell played by each opponent each turn.
Oh, I see. So you play all this stuff and then throw down a Canonist and then it's game over for your opponents.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in I guess there might be a way of doing it on turn one.
I mean, that's 4 cards. How against the odds is it to have this exact 4-card combination plus lands and whatever? Probably very against the odds.
Yeah, I think like turn two, turn three, like you can probably make it fairly consistent, maybe, but I think turn one is going to be a long shot.
All right, next question. Lord McDonald's. It's 7th seal, but instead of chess, you're playing a game of EDH against death. What deck do you play to prolong your existence?
Oh, Panharmonicon.
Wait, what's 7th seal?
Something with Panharmonicon.
Can you win against death, or are you just trying to play the longest game possible, and he'll always win? How does this work?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what 7th seal is actually.
If I'm trying to beat death in EDH, I don't know about this. It means they probably did this a lot, and they're probably very experienced. I'm not going to play Janky Tribal. How about that? If my life is on the line, I might have to Forsaken Janky Tribal. No skeletons.
Richard picks
Wait,
skeletons.
maybe I'd pick
yes.
skeletons and get on Death's good side.
Yeah, there you go. He'll appreciate the deck choice.
Maybe that's the secret. You can't win with, actual winning the game. You got to get a flavor win against Death. Maybe I just outsmarted the game. Tidal Wave 87. I've never had a computer that can run Moto, and my laptop is barely running Arena. It finally's gotten to the point of upgrading to a new computer. Do you guys have any suggestions on what I can look for so that I can play online?
I will say that I found that Arena actually kills my computers way more than Magic Online does at this point.
Yeah.
As far as like draining the resources, so you might know this better than I do, Richard. As far as actually buying computers,
I think just get anything. Moto should run on basically anything. So any modern-ish computer, like even a mid-range or budget computer, should run it. Arena taxes everything. Like even if you have a top-of-the-end MacBook Pro, it's going on full 100% usage. That's an Arena problem. So I think just any reasonable, new computer should run these programs, no problem. It's not like an actual game where you need like a graphics card and, something crazy to run. It should run on anything. I mean, Arena is supposedly playable on tablets and phones eventually, so the requirements are not that high. Skylar H. Spike with Mox Diamond. I'm reminded of how I traded 1-for-1 for 2 copies of Show and Tell a few years ago. Have you ever done a trade that you regretted after the fact?
Yes. Well, actually, it was more like buy listing, but I I bought a collection a few years ago, and kind of the key card, or one of them, it had a bunch of alpha and original stuff, but the best card in the collection was an alpha force field that was actually graded like a 9 or a 9.5, so it was mint, and I ended up buy listing it for like, I don't know, $400 or something, and it's like 4,000 something now, so that was brutal.
That's bad. my worst was I opened a foil Lily out of the Veil, and I traded it in for a playset of Wastelands, which I don't regret. Like, if you look after the fact, it's like kind of bad now, but it got me into Legacy, and I played a ton of Legacy during that time, and I never would have used Foil Lily on the Veil for anything useful, so it was worth it. But if you look back, you're like, that doesn't look too good now. Mike R. Wolf. My son and I would love it if there was a set based on the Marvel Universe. He came up with the first card, Infinity Gauntlet, legendary artifact equipment, 15 mana cost, 10 to equip. When equipped creature attacks, you win the game. Is this possible? Seth, I'm going to ask a question to which I know the answer already. Did you watch Avengers Infinity War? The greatest movie of all time.
I don't really like superhero movies.
Why?
So no.
You're like Infinity Gauntlet? What's that?
Yeah,
is that a gauntlet of might? Does it double your mana?
Infinite mana, right?
Oh my god, the movie was so good. It was so good. I don't... Can we abuse this? A 15 mana artifact with 10 equip costs. So there are cards to cheat artifacts into play. Are there cards to cheat equip costs? There are, right? Pure Steel. So
Pure
this
Steel
actually
does it.
could be pretty good. So I don't know. This is a pretty cool card. And if you look at the Magic subreddit right now, you can show your son, there's a whole bunch of altars involving Infinity Wars right now. People have the gauntlet with Thanos and everything. Everyone is just altering Marvel stuff on the cards right now. So that is actually pretty cool. So you can show that to your son. But I think this is a pretty cool card. I would run an EDH. Next question. JReds17. How does Dusting in Arena handle Rat Colony? Do you get extra copies? Even though you want more than 4.
So they just made it so if you get 4 copies, you can add infinite number of copies to your deck for Rat Colony.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if you had to collect 98 copies or whatever for your EDH deck?
you would have to buy like 1,000 packs to get enough wild cards to build Rat Colony against the odds.
Now I have to implement my suggestion that if you get one of a card, you can then add infinite. Oh, the economy would be so
that would
good.
Be sweet.
Darkness Zora. I have a playset of Panamaticon and paper begging to be played in Standard. What would be the best deck to play with them? What is the best Panamaticon Standard deck, Seth?
Probably the one I would play would be just like a 4-color, all the enter the battlefield triggers abilities, but mono black is also a good one, and probably more budget friendly if that's a concern. So either go all the way to 4 or 5 colors and just play every cool thing, or go mono black for budget.
Alright, Chaos Engineer 1, I swear I did not plant this, Seth, but with leagues in Arena now, can y'all start including them during the stream? It would be fun to watch Wrath Flash in Arena.
I think more arena stuff is going to be coming. We're in the progress of figuring out how to do some arena content. Little nervous about there not being any real format at this point, or best of 3 matches, but don't worry, there will be arena stuff coming.
The format is Magic as Richard Garfield intended, Seth.
All mono red.
You gotta build decks with what you have, and Arena is the perfect place for people that hate net deckers because there's no net decking currently. You gotta just build with what you have and kind of do that. So it's actually a weird mini game in itself, and it's not quite the same as, say, watching the SCG Standard Classic or the Pro Tour. Speaking of which, when is the Pro Tour, Seth? When are we getting real Standard solidified with a metagame dictated by the pros?
This is one of the weird late ones. It's not until the first weekend of June, so we have roughly a full month until the Pro Tour.
Oh, I'm so not excited for Standard now. I was waiting for new decks.
I will say it's a little weird that even with the Pro Tour being a month away, they didn't have any Standard events for release weekend. STG had a team event, Wizards did a limited GP. So it felt kind of anticlimactic with how hyped people were for Dominaria. Like, usually I'm like, okay, they can't do a constructed GP because there's a Pro Tour the next week. But I think Wizards should look at that. Like, if the Pro Tour is 6 weeks away, there needs to be a big Standard tournament on release weekend to get people hyped and keep people hyped for the new set.
All right. I think that wraps up our fish mail. Thank you, everyone, for sending them in. You can send them to the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I think that brings us to the end of episode 170 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So thanks everyone for listening. We will be back next week to talk more Magic. So until then, this is the MTG Goldfish podcast crew signing out.